Betul pilihan anda.
Assalamualaikum dan salam sejahtera. Ini adalah perkembangan yang akan kami mulakan dahulu dengan 5 remaja perempuan bawah umur dijadual didakwa di Mahkamah Kanak-Kanak di Kota Kinabalu. Pagi ini berhubung kes buli pelajar Allahyarham Zahra Khairina Mahathir. Mereka yang berumur di bawah 18 tahun itu akan dituduh mengikut Seksyen 507C-1 Kanun Keseksaan, iaitu berhubung kesalahan menggunakan atau membuat apa-apa perkataan atau komunikasi yang mengancam, kesat atau menghina. Dengan itu kita mempersilakan Wakil Astro AWANI Sabah Fadil Salihin untuk membawakan perkembangan terkini.
Ya, terima kasih kepada rakan tugas di studio. Pagi ini saya dan kru telah berada di Mahkamah Kota Kinabalu, yang mana seperti umum tahu, berlangsungnya sesi pertuduhan bagi 5 pelajar perempuan di Mahkamah Kanak-Kanak berhubungan kes Allahyarham Zahra Khairina Mahathir. Berdasarkan hasil tinjauan kami, kawalan ketat sedang dilakukan oleh petugas keselamatan di sekitar perkarangan laluan masuk ke Mahkamah Kota Kinabalu di Jalan Kebajikan bagi memastikan perjalanan pertuduhan di mahkamah hari ini berjalan dengan lancar. Bagaimanapun, terdapat sekumpulan pengamal media sudah berada di perkarangan mahkamah untuk menjalankan tugas dengan pertuduhan kelima-lima pelajar berkenaan dipercayai bermula sekitar jam 9 pagi di Mahkamah Kanak-Kanak. Dan untuk rekod, ya, rakan tugas malam, Jabatan Peguam Negara AGC mendedahkan dakwaan terhadap 5 remaja bawah umur itu dibuat mengikut Seksyen 507C-1, di mana kanun keseksaan kerana pertuduhan itu merujuk kepada perbuatan buli sahaja dan tidak mempunyai kaitan dengan kematian Allahyarham Zahra. Kenyataan AGC memaklumkan keputusan menuduh kelima-lima remaja di bawah seksyen itu adalah berdasarkan penelitian jabatan berkenaan terhadap kertas siasatan. Sementara itu, Suruhanjaya Hak Asasi Manusia Malaysia Suhakam, dalam kenyataan medianya semalam menggesa untuk semua pihak, khususnya media dan orang awam, untuk melindungi hak 5 kanak-kanak terbabit. Jelas kenyataan itu, semua kanak-kanak terlibat berhak mendapat perlindungan di mana di bawah Akta Kanak-Kanak 2001, Akta 611 termasuk sokongan berasaskan trauma, khidmat perundangan dan layanan adil. Dan Suhakam turut menjelaskan identiti kanak-kanak tidak boleh didedahkan secara langsung atau tidak langsung. Jadi mana-mana nama, gambar, sekolah atau sebarang maklumat yang boleh membawa kepada pengenalan diri mereka tidak boleh didedahkan kepada umum. Jadi baik, itu sahaja yang mungkin boleh saya laporkan mengenai perkembangan awal pertuduhan kes ini pada pagi ini. Dan petugas media pun sekarang sedang menunggu di perkarangan mahkamah. Kita kembali kepada rakan tugas.
Baik, terima kasih Fadil Salihin, Wakil Astro AWANI Sabah yang berada di Mahkamah Kanak-Kanak Kota Kinabalu ketika ini bersama dengan rakan media lain menunggu perkembangan pendakwaan 5 remaja perempuan bawah umur yang dijadual didakwa di Mahkamah Kanak-Kanak di Kota Kinabalu pada pagi ini. Dan teruskan bersama kami di mana kalau kita lihat seluruh rakyat Malaysia pun tertunggu apakah jawapan dan apakah yang akan berlaku seterusnya. Dan kami di Astro AWANI di saluran 501 dan di semua platform digital Astro AWANI akan bawakan perkembangan dari semasa ke semasa. Sekali lagi saya nak ucapkan terima kasih kepada Fadil Salihin, Wakil Astro AWANI di Sabah, dan kami akan teruskan dengan perkembangan seterusnya. Pengurusan kewangan negara mesti dilaksanakan secara berhemah dan berdisiplin selaras dengan semangat Akta Kewangan Awam dan Tanggungjawab Fiskal 2023 FRA. Perdana Menteri Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim menekankan perkara itu ketika mempengerusikan mesyuarat Jawatan Kuasa Dasar Fiskal FPC, iaitu platform penting dalam rangka dasar fiskal yang jelas dan menentukan hala tuju ekonomi negara.
Anwar yang juga Menteri Kewangan berkata, kerajaan madani perlu terus mencari keseimbangan antara usaha mengekalkan momentum pertumbuhan ekonomi dan memastikan kedudukan fiskal negara kekal mampan, terutama dalam persekitaran ekonomi global yang tidak menentu. Meskipun dunia masih bergelut dengan ketidaktentuan, ekonomi negara kekal kukuh dengan kadar pertumbuhan 4.4% bagi separuh pertama 2025. Malah, katanya kadar pengangguran juga telah menurun kepada paras 3%, iaitu yang terendah dalam tempoh 10 tahun. Menurut beliau, kerajaan berjaya mengurangkan defisit fiskal daripada 5.5% pada 2022 kepada 4.1% daripada keluaran dalam negara kasar pada 2024, satu pencapaian yang membuktikan komitmen terhadap pengurusan fiskal yang bertanggungjawab. Sementara itu, Kementerian Kewangan dalam kenyataan berasingan sempena mesyuarat FPC pada Isnin berkata, ketika Kerajaan Madani melangkah ke fasa pelaksanaan rancangan Malaysia ke-13, ruang fiskal mesti dimanfaatkan sepenuhnya. MOF berkata langkah ini bagi memastikan penjanaan pelaburan awam yang mampu mengubah ekonomi negara secara menyeluruh, iaitu menaikkan siling ekonomi dan meningkatkan kesejahteraan hidup rakyat dengan menaikkan lantai. Mesyuarat FPC tersebut turut menegaskan iltizam kerajaan untuk mengekalkan sasaran defisit fiskal 3.8% pada 2025 dan seterusnya mengurangkan defisit kepada 3% atau lebih rendah dalam tempoh jangka sederhana selaras dengan peruntukan di bawah FRA. Menurut kenyataan itu, mesyuarat kali ini juga merupakan platform penting dalam menetapkan trajektori fiskal kerajaan menjelang pembentangan belanjawan 2026 pada 10 Oktober 2025. MOF berkata selaras dengan peruntukan FRA, Kerajaan Madani sedang melaksanakan strategi hasil jangka sederhana bagi memperluas asas hasil negara dan mewujudkan sistem percukaian yang lebih progresif di samping memperkukuh pematuhan terhadap amalan terbaik antarabangsa. Bagi fasa seterusnya, fokus utama kerajaan adalah memastikan ketirisan dapat ditangani dengan lebih berkesan di samping meningkatkan kecekapan melalui pelaksanaan sistem e-invoice secara berperingkat.
Baik, sebelum kita membawakan perkembangan di peringkat antarabangsa, kita akan bawakan dahulu iaitu data ataupun statistik di peringkat negara, iaitu perdagangan luar negeri yang telah dikeluarkan oleh Jabatan Perakam Malaysia untuk kita saksikan bagaimanakah prestasi setakat Julai 2025. Sudah tentu ini adalah antara indikator untuk kita melihat bagaimanakah tahap kesihatan ekonomi dari aspek ataupun dari segi ekonomi, dan pada masa kini untuk kita menyaksikan bagaimanakah ekspor dan import ketika ini setakat Julai telah merekodkan peningkatan iaitu 6.8% kepada nilai 140.4 bilion ringgit. Manakala import pula juga turut merekodkan peningkatan dengan 0.6% kepada jumlah 125.5 bilion ringgit. Dan kedua-dua ini kalau kita tambah mendapatkan jumlah dagangan kepada 265.9 bilion ringgit, mengalami 3.8% pada Julai tahun ini. Dan jumlah imbangan dagangan juga telah merekodkan peningkatan sebanyak 120.7% kepada 15.0 bilion ringgit. Dan di mana secara ringkas kita dapat menyaksikan jumlah dagangan pada bulan Julai 2025 mengalami peningkatan dengan ekspor dan import keduanya meningkat pada bulan itu. Seterusnya untuk kita menyaksikan bagaimanakah prestasi ekspor dan import bagi sektor. Kita mulakan dengan ekspor pembuatan di mana mengalami peningkatan kepada jumlah 122.1 bilion ringgit, 9.0%. Import dalam sektor pembuatan juga meningkat kepada 107.9 bilion ringgit, sedikit peningkatan kepada 1.5%. Namun prestasi pelombongan agak berbeza sedikit daripada segi ekspor dan importnya, di mana kedua-dua mengalami penurunan dengan ekspor pelombongan sebanyak 8.1 bilion ringgit. Kita lihat nilai yang direkodkan pada Julai 2025 dengan penurunan 4.3%. Import juga menurun pada kadar 4.1% dengan merekodkan jumlah pada bulan tersebut 9.2 bilion ringgit. Bukan sektor pelombongan juga, kita dapat saksikan sektor pertanian juga mengalami penurunan daripada segi ekspor telah turun 8.6%. Import juga telah turun 2 angka sebanyak 11.6%. Dan prestasi mengikut sektor ekspor dan import, setakat ini pembuatan sahaja yang mengalami peningkatan pada bulan Julai 2025, manakala sektor pelombongan dan pertanian daripada segi ekspor dan import mengalami penurunan setakat ini. Dan kita akan teruskan juga melihat kepada analisa dalaman oleh DOSM di mana import bagi klasifikasi ekonomi umum dan juga penggunaan akhir. Kita mulakan dengan barang perantaraan iaitu sebanyak 45.3% sumbangannya kepada ekonomi mengalami penurunan sebanyak 2 angka 17.8% pada bulan Julai dengan merekodkan nilai 56.8 bilion ringgit. Namun kalau kita lihat di tengah-tengah, barangan modal mengalami peningkatan pada bulan Julai tersebut dengan peningkatan 20.6% kepada jumlah 18.2 bilion ringgit. Manakala barangan penggunaan mengalami penurunan setakat Julai 2025 kepada 10.4 bilion ringgit telah direkodkan penurunan sebanyak 5.0%. Dan kita lihat import bagi klasifikasi ekonomi ini di 3 peringkat daripada peringkat awal iaitu barangan perantaran dan juga peringkat akhir barangan penggunaan mengalami penurunan. Tapi daripada segi barangan modal pada bulan Julai setakat ini mengalami peningkatan. Ini adalah prestasi yang dapat kita saksikan pada prestasi pada bulanan. Manakala dagangan dengan ASEAN pula iaitu sumbangan dagangan ASEAN telah merekodkan 27.2% dan kita lihat ekspor dengan ASEAN mengalami peningkatan dengan merekodkan 43.5 bilion ringgit, peningkatan sebanyak 8.4%. Manakala import dagangan dengan ASEAN mengalami penurunan pada bulan Julai kepada 28.8 bilion ringgit telah direkodkan, penurunan sebanyak 6.8%, hampir mencecah 7%. Dan ini adalah jumlah dagangan dengan ASEAN dapat kita saksikan pada prestasi bulanan. Manakala 3 rakan dagang utama iaitu China, Singapura dan Amerika Syarikat kekal sebagai 3 rakan dagangan utama Malaysia. Dan kalau kita lihat hanya negara China saja di mana kita mengalami peningkatan daripada segi ekspor dan import, kedua-duanya 6.8% dan 6.3%. Namun Amerika Syarikat dan juga Singapura kita lihat kedua-dua ekspor mengalami peningkatan tetapi import sahaja mengalami penurunan bersama Amerika Syarikat dan Singapura. Namun kita dapat saksikan ketiga-tiga negara ini adalah kekal sebagai 3 rakan dagangan utama Malaysia. Baik, penting untuk kita meneliti bagaimanakah prestasi perdagangan Malaysia setakat bulan Julai 2025 ini melihat berada dalam landasan yang trajektori yang stabil. Namun melihat kepada prestasi ini, Malaysia masih bergantung besar dengan import perantara dan kita lihat daripada kebergantungan ini boleh menjadi risiko sekiranya dunia mengalami kejutan yang besar. Namun bergerak ke hadapan kita penting untuk Malaysia melihat apakah langkah seterusnya, apa yang boleh kita lakukan untuk memastikan Malaysia dapat memperkukuhkan perdagangan antara ASEAN, memperluaskan diversifikasi ekspor termasuk juga meningkatkan lagi iaitu produk huluan sendiri agar Malaysia dapat berdikari dan berdaya tahan dalam jangka panjang. Dan itu adalah prestasi ataupun kita lihat perincahan ekonomi yang dapat kita saksikan prestasinya dalam bulan ke bulan. Dan kita akan teruskan dengan perkembangan AWANI International. Alright, in 2025, the challenges facing leaders from aging populations to digital disruptions are too complex for all ways of thinking. Design thinking flips the script. It's not about writing policies or strategies in a vacuum. It's about deeply understanding people's needs and co-creating solutions that actually work. Change makers use it to reimagine impact, policymakers to design policies citizens will embrace, and decision makers to cut it through complexity and act fast. Leaders who don't apply the risk-building system, people won't use, but those who do unlock real innovation and trust. And for that, I welcome you, our guest that's ready on the line to discuss this is Ahmad Azwar Zainuddin, the CEO Satu Creative. I want to say thank you very much, Anwar, for joining me. Firstly, we often hear the term design thinking, but what does it actually mean and why should leaders care about it, especially in 2025?
Good morning, Nina. Good morning, audience of Niaga AWANI. Too often, leaders jump straight to solutions and end up solving the wrong problem. Of course, in these fast-changing times, old playbooks don't give us the answer anymore, especially with the advent of artificial intelligence, climate crisis, rising cost of living. So with design thinking, it asks us to take a pause and ask, what do people really need? This helps us to test quickly rather than making assumptions, and we adapt faster and stay relevant. So design thinking is important today because it's not just thinking outside of the box, it's making sure that we are at the right box.
And making sure we are in the right box, why do you believe design thinking is not just for designers or tech companies, but also for policymakers and decision makers in government and also business?
Yeah, that is a very common misconception. People think that design thinking is only for apps and products. This keeps away a very powerful tool locked in silos. But in reality, it's for anyone making decisions that affects people. Design thinking, in a nutshell, is a human-centered approach to solving problems. Regardless whether you're ministers, CEOs of teachers, design thinking is very relevant for you. It puts people at the center, and any sector for that matter can innovate with design thinking. If your work touches people, then design thinking is for you.
All right, that is to help us understand the most common misconception. And for change makers working on social impact, how can design thinking help them scale their ideas or reach the communities they want to serve or unserve? What's your thought on that?
Many social projects by Changemaker fails because they are designed for communities and not with them.
Okay.
A solution often reflects donor or change makers' priorities, but not really the community realities. With design thinking, change makers sits side by side with the people they are looking to serve. Together, they co-create solution that lasts and scale. Good intention don't always lead to good impact, but co-creation definitely does.
All right, you share with us most of the solution that was created, it's the design for them, it's not designed with them. So can you share some of the successful example where design thinking has made a real difference in solving pressing social and environmental changes that focus on the aspect of design the solutions with the community?
All right, let's look at one example. In Malaysia, refugees often struggle to earn dignified living. Traditional aid models treat them more as beneficiaries. This means lots of charity, very little empowerment. So if we look at one case example, Pizza Eats, one of the, I guess, renowned social enterprise in Malaysia, use a human-centered approach and flip the script. So they co-create by co-creating a food business with the refugees and family. So if we look at this, it's about empowerment, tapping hidden talent, and connecting them to customers. It's not about giving handouts, it's about unlocking the talent that exists. So that takes a lot of empathy, a lot of listening, and I think kudos to Pizza Eats for successfully rolling out their initiative.
All right, there's also policy can often feel disconnected from people's everyday lives. We want to ensure that design thinking help policies makers create policies that truly resonates with citizens. But in order for us to achieve or seize any of the challenges, what are some of the gaps that we need to address first and fast?
You hit the nail on the spot there. Policies often can feel very distant, written in languages that people don't really live by. This creates a lot of frustration, a lot of distrust. So with design thinking, policymakers can get closer to everyday realities. Policies start to feel like they were written for people, with people, not for people. Policy becomes powerful when it speaks the language of the people. And with this, design thinking can help policymakers, change makers, leaders, to really start by listening, start by empathizing, start by getting close to the people that they are serving.
And in the corporate world, decision makers are under pressure to innovate fast. How does design thinking give them a competitive edge? All
right. Many corporations spend a lot in building products that nobody wants. This is in the startup phrase, we call it a product looking for customer rather than a customer looking for product. So long planning cycles often make organizations very slow to market. With design thinking, with an experimental approach, you test early and fail small. This saves money, speed up learning, and make launches more likely to be successful, ultimately de-risking. It's better to fail on paper or fail in small experiment than fail in the market.
And do you see that design thinking as a tool for crisis management or more for a long-term transformation, or both? If both, how can we balance it?
I think it works both ways. Whether you're launching a product, managing industries or corporations, or whether you're facing a crisis, often we panic and guess. So design thinking take a more evidence-based, more, I guess, close to the issue at hand, and this gives us a tool that we can use urgently, test urgently, and ultimately, if applied consistently and across the organization, this builds a culture where organizations are more innovative, resilient. So that makes it both a fire extinguisher and as well as a compass, Lina.
And what's your advice to leaders who want to start embedding design thinking into their work today? The do's and don'ts, what are the right preparations, where and how do we start?
All right. So a lot of time, leaders tend to think that they need big budgets or they need to work with consultants. I think this normally stops them on the track before they even begin. So my advice is you can start small, talk to your users, generate ideas, lots and lots of them, and test it quickly. Right? Once people see the result, the approach spreads naturally, design thinking. don't wait for the perfect plan, start with a conversation.
All right, before I go to my last questions, your hopes and wish list, maybe you can share with them what are some of the examples that we can adapt from other countries or other countries that have more resources, financial, more platform to do this?
Actually, looking at a lot of countries, the design thinking is quite a proven model. So it's not new in Malaysia, but I think the application can be more democratized. I think a lot of times you see this being applied in corporates, but or tech. It needs to be more spread out. And I think that's what we try to do at Astro Creative. We work with change makers. We will go into like all part of Malaysia to give this very powerful tool and allow people to have something that they can use in order for them to tackle problem that really solves a need rather than creating something and failing because they're just not meeting the market or the beneficiary demand. Yeah.
And if there's one takeaway, Anwar, you want our viewers to remember, what is it?
We often assume that the smartest people in the room has the answer, and this often leads to a top-down approach, and that misses the mark, right? Design thinking reminds us that the smartest people are the people, right? So leaders succeed when they listen first and then design. The best solution, don't start with an idea, it starts with the people.
All right, I probably like that last sentence. Don't start with the ideas, start with the people, because the people is the best way for us to start innovate. And again, I would say thank you very much to Ahmad Azwar Zainuddin for helping us understand what are the beyond strategy and how design thinking can transform decision into an impact, not short-term but also long-term transformation. Again, I would say thank you very much to the CEO of Astro Creative, and definitely all of our discussion here will be featured in AstroAwani.com and across all social media platforms. All right, next update is the Nasdaq and S&P 500 dip on Tuesday, driven by tech stocks as investors gear up for what Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell will say about the path of interest rates at a key conference later in the week. The Nasdaq fell as mega caps Nvidia, Microsoft and Meta platforms lost after having rallied for much of the year. The key event this week is the Fed's annual symposium at Jackson Hole, Wyoming from August 21st to 23rd, where Powell's comments will be scrutinized for any clues on the central bank's outlook on the economy and the monetary policy.
I think things may be heading south today because possibly the prospect of the Fed cutting rates or discussing cutting rates at the meeting on Friday, maybe there's a little less chance of that. I've seen a lot of commentary recently about that there's really not a huge need to cut rates, that the economy is reasonably strong. And what many economists are more worried about is inflation. So I think the market has been up over, for the past several weeks on the prospect of rate cuts, and perhaps that prospect is fading. When Powell speaks, he is very, very measured. So it's really hard to imagine that he would say something that would be like, oh, yes, we're definitely going to cut rates, or we're definitely not going to cut rates. But sometimes if you can parse his words, you may get a little bit of a hint of one direction or the other. So, that is one thing that we would definitely look for. I don't think we would actually get that. I think we're just more likely to want to see what his comments are on the economy.
SoftBank Group is taking a $2 billion equity stake in Intel. The two companies said on Monday amid a ramp-up in efforts to provide financial support to the struggling U.S. chipmaker. The Japanese investment company will pay $23 per share for Intel common stock. They say in a joint statement, SoftBank would become the sixth largest investor in Intel, according to LSEG data. SoftBank's investment will come via a primary issuance of common stocks by Intel, and based on the U.S. company's market capitalization at close of trading on Monday, would represent an equity stake of just under 2%, an Intel spokesperson said. Bloomberg News reported earlier on Monday that the U.S. government is in talks to take a 10% stake in Intel. This comes after U.S. President Donald Trump called for the resignation of the company's CEO, Lip-Bu Tan, earlier this month. Media reports have said last week that the US government may buy a stake in Intel after a meeting between Tan and Trump that was sparked by the US president's demand for the Intel chief's resignations over his ties to Chinese firms. SoftBank declined to provide more details on the Intel investment when asked to comment by Reuters. China and India on Monday agreed to maintain momentum of bilateral ties. The consensus came from talks between visiting Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi and his Indian counterpart Subrahmanyam Jaishankar. One said that in today's world, the changing situation is evolving rapidly. Unilateral bullying practices are rampant and free trade and the international order face severe challenges. Wang said as the United Nations marks its 80th anniversary, humanity has reached a critical crossroad determining the future direction of the world. As the two largest developing countries with a combined population of more than 2.8 billion, China and India should demonstrate a sense of global responsibility, act as major powers, set an example for developing countries in pursuit of strength through unity, and contribute to promoting world multipolarization, democratizations of international relations, he said. He said both sides have been implementing consensus reached by leaders of the two countries, gradually resuming exchanges and dialogue at all levels, maintaining peace and tranquility in border areas, and enabling India pilgrims to resume their pilgrimages to sacred mountains and lakes in China's Xizang. Jaishankar said that under the joint guidance of leaders of the two countries, bilateral relations have moved from the bottom and are continuously improving and developing, adding exchanges and cooperation between the two sides in all fields are moving toward normalization. He expressed gratitude to China for facilitating India pilgrims' visit to sacred mountains and lakes in China's Xizang, saying that improving strategic perceptions is of great importance, and as the two largest developing countries, India and China adhere to multilateralism and are committed to promoting a fair and balanced multipolar world. He reaffirmed that Taiwan is a part of China.
You know, we've been monitoring Scope 1 and Scope 2 since 2019. Scope 1 covers petrol and fuel usage. Scope 2, of course, mainly about electricity. We've been doing quite well monitoring and reducing and improving Scope 1 and Scope 2. But it's very obvious to us, Scope 3 is the one that matters because Scope 3 covers about 80 to 90% of our carbon footprint, and it involves the whole of our supply chain. So obviously to us, that's really not just a priority, but an objective that we must definitely on our journey towards sustainability, that we must tackle and bring our partners along together with us. Together with our supply chain, EcoWorld must evolve the way we work, the way we do our business, the way we see how people use our products in the longer run, towards a more sustainable future, towards a more caring about climate, caring about environment, and caring about how to take care of the planet together, while of course we are still making our profits and our livelihood, and also ensuring that we do not destroy the planet in the future. At EcoWorld, we must demonstrate our sincerity and our determination to bring the agenda forward. Just for your information, we have been digitalization process in EcoWorld has been going on for many years, right? That is also one way to make us more sustainable, look after the environment, and also the way we do our work, our designs, how we do our projects, how we look at when we do our earthworks and waterways, how we look after them, right? Those are very important steps that we must take to show to our supply chain that we are serious. And when we do and we produce the buildings that a lot of our communities live in, work in, it must veer towards a longer sustainability goal, even for our communities. We needed a tool where we can put everybody together And the progress tool assesses them. It tells our partners where they actually stand in climate maturity, right? And the tool also can help them beyond assessing, also give them ideas where there are gaps in their processes, how to improve, how to go forward, and also monitor the action plans that they will take. So with the progress tool, it's because it's well structured, we can monitor and see how they progress over a period of time, and then keep on discussing to ask them to go forward, to put in new ideas, putting in resources together, time together. A lot of time is required.
The goal is not just for us as one company, but it's for everybody as a whole. So partnerships are very important. And so when we partner with UNGC and Alliance Bank, they provide a very valuable help and insights in terms of the whole process. Because what we did with them was, as you know, we conducted workshops with our supply chain partners to help educate them in terms of what sustainability is all about, and simplify the whole topic, because today in the market it's very confusing and it seems very big. How we worked with the UNGC and Alliance Bank is through this whole process with their progress tool. We educated our supply chain partners on the value of sustainability. The additional good thing of the progress tool is it is structured in a very layman terms, whereby our partners are able to really understand what they need to do and relate it back to the ordinary day of work, so that they know how to effectively make the change towards climate maturity. And we are happy when we monitor this process that most of our supply chain partners actually jumped at least 2 levels in their climate maturity. For example, previously they were laggard, they managed to jump to advanced. So this was very happy for us to see and gave us confidence in terms of how we structured our workshops. Because at the end of the day, the workshops that we do must be as layman as possible, so that everybody collectively understands the main goal. And through this process, today we are embedding this same progress tool in our risk assessment of our partners, so that we can actually monitor them and ensure that all our supply chain partners hit a minimum level of intermediate, so that we know together as a company, as a partnership, we are all moving forward towards a sustainable future.
Dok Aman dah nak makmul. Abang nak keluar dari sini kan?
Kita cari bilik sewa. Ni rumah saya. Ada nampak tak 2 orang budak ni? Ni, saya cari 2 orang budak ni. Tak ada sini lah.
Awak mau ambil jadi anak ya, tapi awak kena masuk Islam. Ha? Uncle Mike.
Ini pertama kali saya raya tak ada adik-adik.
Tuhan tak bagi apa yang kita nak. Dia bagi apa yang kita perlu.
Uncle Mike buat saya percaya yang ada lagi orang baik dekat dunia ni.
Alright, thank you for tuning in into Niaga Awani, and right now we want to discuss on an important topic, which is how we can optimize Malaysia's rare earth element potential. And rare earth elements, or REE, may sound like something out of science textbooks, but in reality they're the quiet drivers of our modern lives, like powering electric vehicles, wind turbines, smartphones, and also like critical defense systems as a whole. But as the world races towards green technology and also advanced manufacturing, demand for these minerals is set to skyrocket, which turns them into one of the most strategic resources of our time. But the real question now is, how do we turn this natural advantage into lasting economic and also strategic strength? So to discuss this, we're joined today by two honourable guests. On my right is Tan Sri Dr. Insinyur Ahmad Tajuddin Ali, the Joint Chairman for MITE, and also on his right is Dato' Insinyur Abdul Rashid Musa, the Head of Strategy, SIME UMW, and also the Chairman for Automotive Productivity Nexus. How are you? Good morning.
Morning. Morning.
Thank you for joining me in the studio this morning. It's an honor. But if I could start this whole conversation with Tan Sri, what's the big deal with rare earth elements, or this REE, and why are they so important to the world right now, and it is such a global interest?
Well, first, thank you to Astro for inviting us to discuss this topic of rare earth elements and where and how we as a nation can play in this industry. Well, rare earth has been there since the beginning, but in a way it is new, although for me it is maybe where I started my career, because way back in the 70s, 80s, there was this company that started the production of rare earth elements in Perak, a Japanese company, and I was at that time with the Nuclear Institute, and because of the presence of radioactive elements in the process, as it were, although they are natural, but it is there. We were called upon to help, particularly on public concerns about radioactivity and so on. So, been 30 plus years for me in this. Then, of course, the investment in Pahang, in Gebeng, by Linus, which also became a public issue. So, has been this problem, as it were, as when it comes to rare earth in this country. Rare earth consists of a few elements in the periodic table from a scientific point of view. It's there, it's naturally occurring, and it can be extracted. And in this country, we have been estimated quite a substantial reserve of rare earth. So that is the potential. But up to now, we have only extracted the one from the tin tailings, from the amangs and so on, but that also has stopped. But the one that we are processing in Gebeng now, not we are processing, but a company, an Australian company that is set up there that is processing, is the only industry that we have in this country, as it were, into rare earth. So rare earth, in this industry, there are three stages. There is upstream, downstream, midstream and downstream. Upstream is about the mining, and that's where we want to talk about today. Midstream is about the processing of that mine product, like the one that is happening in Gebeng now, in Linus, as a factory. And downstream is what products do we make from using this rare earth. That does not exist yet in Malaysia. It's that rare earth that we produce from Gebeng is sent overseas to make those downstream products, as you mentioned earlier, for use in EVs and all the various applications where rare earth elements. So it's very important, it's strategic for the country. At the moment, we are one of the two players in the world in this area. We'll come to that later.
Mm-hmm. Like you mentioned, RE has been there for decades, but right now the demand is just, off the ceiling. And Malaysia is sitting on 1 trillion ringgit worth of RE, and honestly, that's huge. So with potential to build entire industries in magnets, motors, and green tech manufacturing, for example, how do we make sure it actually benefits the country long term and not just a short-term resource boom? Dato'.
Okay. Thank you again. For inviting me. I would like to share some applications mentioned by Tan Sri just now. It's huge, especially the new so-called economy, in green economy. Because the finished product, the downstream, not many people are aware that even in a car today, there are kilos of actually rare earth that makes the finished product like sensors, EV motors and so on. And the potential is huge. And it can create, as Tansi said, a new economy for the country that have a very high multiplier effect. And then these downstream activities, the multiplier is very high. That can create, as I said, the three things, three E's I call it. The first is about employment, the high level, high skill employment for the countries in the economy. Second is about the ecosystem, whereby the multiplier for tier 2, tier 3, and even downstream activities. And the third is actually the potential for export. Okay. The reserve is huge, as I mentioned, more than 1 trillion, but that is at raw material level. If we go higher to downstream, the multiplier will be higher, and it can reach up to 100 trillion of value. Yeah. So this actually can be, Malaysia had this opportunity to become a key player, taking advantage from the current geopolitical issue. Yeah. We can be the third force in the world, actually, if you want to focus on developing this industry. And we need a whole of nation approach to do this. And nevertheless, it comes with challenges, a cooperation between state and federal government. Second, we need to prepare the new talents. And third, we need to develop an appropriate infrastructure. And last but not least, we need to establish a new act and policy so that it can support the industry to grow. Yeah.
That's a whole new big opportunities for Malaysia right
Definitely.
there. So, but for Tan Sri, maybe you can share or enlighten us on why the need for technology sovereignty in REE, rare earth elements. And we see that China right now controls most of the global REE supply, which is about 80%. And why is it so important for Malaysia to actually build our own tech and also capabilities in this space, especially for economic or also strategic industries?
Well, the potential, as I mentioned earlier, the potential is there because we have this resource. We are among the few countries in the world that we know that we are one of the top as far as the rare earth elements present in the ground. Yeah. So the first challenge is to take it out of the ground. As Dr. Rashid mentioned, when it comes to mining, it is a state matter. And so there needs to be a national resolve, a one Malaysia kind of approach that will enable us to extract what is in the ground. So downstream, mining of the rare earth. And we must be able to do it in a way that is safe, that is environmentally sound, that it will not destroy the environment and so on. Those are challenges. We know what happened in the case of the tin in the old days where, the scars of the mining is left until today. We do not want that to happen when we extract these rare earth elements from the ground. So the mining is one thing. The second part is to have that technological and economic viability of actually processing that mineral in this country. At the moment, we have one plant, foreign owned, as I said, belonging to an Australian company that is there in near Kuantan, and it is processing. There is some issues related to public acceptance and so on. But to me, it is something that is, as mentioned, we are the other producer for the world. 80+% is from China. And the major one, the other 10% also is from Malaysia, from this company. And we are supplying to the world. But that we is Australia actually, Australian product, but produced here in Malaysia. So there is geopolitical play there, as we all know. The third part is to attract investment, whether it's domestic or foreign investment into the country, to use the rare earth elements that is produced from the processing plant, hopefully more than Lenas in Malaysia in the future, to produce products here in this country, rather than at the moment is exported. To mainly the production from Kuantan at the moment is going to Japan, mainly going to Japan. Whether you can bring industries to do the manufacturing here, whether it is making magnets and so on, because by and large, even today, we are not, even the real manufacturing is being done by foreign companies, although in Malaysia. There are some Malaysian companies, but in this area at the moment, it's all foreign, whether it is super magnets or things, final product that goes into you know, these medical devices that we have in hospitals and so on is produced by companies from other countries we buy. But originally, that rare earth element that is used in those components in that machine came from Malaysia. Yeah. So the challenge is how do we become a participant in the whole line of, you know, in the whole ecosystem, as it were. We produce the raw material, which is in this case the rare earth elements from our mines. We process them here, hopefully by our companies, and then later on making products, whether it is by local companies or by foreign investment in this country, so that there is employment, there is value add that is produced in this country. That's the challenge in the whole line, as it were, from upstream to midstream to downstream. The extent of our own industrial participation.
That's interesting. Although it's very important, we see all those list of challenges that you mentioned earlier when it comes to mining challenge, processing of the minerals, and also when it comes to attract investors. These are all, you know, holding us back from actually driving towards the whole REE minerals as a whole. But my question towards Dato, in identifying this REE as a moonshot industry, do you actually have enough players across the ecosystem or the value chain from mining to manufacturing, or is it still work in progress?
There are very limited players in this industry. As you mentioned just now, 80% in China, the rest of the world, Malaysia, probably other pockets of players in other part of the world. I take one example, a supermagnet, a key material to produce EV motors for wind turbine, also EV cars. The CAGR of this supermagnet is about 12.5% from 2020 to 2034. And unfortunately, top 9 players are in China, number 10 in Japan, and 11 in Korea. Right? So I think we should leverage on the presence of Lynas in the midstream activity as the largest plant outside China, because Lynas can become the key enabler for our industry to grow as off-taker for the raw material and also supplier for the downstream activities. So that's key important role, because we are already in the game, except that we have not actually gone through the whole capacity to develop other ecosystem upstream and also downstream. And we must create strategic alliances. So we do not have this capability at the moment in Malaysia. That's why one of the challenges is that we need to prepare the talents and capabilities in this country. Right? As this is new, so the knowledge is very limited, so we can capitalize on our institution, higher learning institution, to develop this technology and own the IPR example. And this can happen, can be propagated by G2G collaboration example. That's how we started our industrialization in 1980s era. All right, I think we can replicate such activities to be done and to develop our local capability. And the triple helix collaboration between industry players, higher learning institution, and government and professional bodies in Malaysia can also help to, you know, to speed up the capability development in the country. The opportunity, as I said again, because that there are limited players, so we can be so-called an important player. We can get, you know, support from other countries as well to develop a local capability. So there must be a willing donor of technology and also development of our own homegrown technical capabilities to progress further in this area, I believe.
Yeah, it's a chicken and egg situation. The demand is there, but the supply is very limited. So talking about capacity building, like like what Dato mentioned earlier, Tan Sri, are there any national plans or strategies that's already in motion right now to grow this industry, and are they moving fast enough? That's the real question.
Yeah, Nabilah, this is an area that we have been grappling with all these years, and particularly in this very area of rare earth extraction and processing and turning them into products that the market needs, the world needs. As we all know that, as I mentioned earlier, mining is a state matter, so there must be this willingness to cooperate, to harness this potential that is in our soil in order to mine it and do it, as I said, in a way that is environmentally sound in the context of the current push for this ESG and so on. So that is a must. Is new techniques of mining that will not destroy the environment and so on will have to be found. That's one part. Having got the raw material, as it were, then we want to have the ability to process it in this country. Chances are it has to be done here, and to attract the technology and build the capacity within our own industries in order to be able to do that. So there is a task again. And then the third part, of course, to find investors, whether it's domestic or foreign, to set up factories in this country such that the product that is needed can be produced here, employing locals and so on, paying local taxes, and the whole economy will benefit. So we must create this ecosystem all the way from upstream, midstream, downstream. Now we talk about the downstream. The downstream finally is about making products that the market needs. That market is the world, is a global market. Whether finally it is about EVs or we want to make all of those products, and even the application in military and so on, that those products are made by somebody somewhere. But the raw material is coming from here, from us, from our own mines, our own refining and production capacity in this country, finally exported or produced to serve the needs of manufacturers in this country. So creating this whole ecosystem is what is needed over the next few years. So the government has, in a way, as an enabler, because finally the investment is mainly done by private sector, and it could be multinational, or it could be GLCs in this country, directed by government, for example, like what happened in the case of Petronas in those years. But in this case, there has to be economic incentive for those people to want to do it in this country. So yes, we have had many blueprints on rare earths, on advanced materials, our own recently announced industrial master plan. All are there, in terms of plan. But it is not done. The actual investment finally is done by private sector. So government can only provide the correct ecosystem for things to happen. Maybe providing tax incentives and other things in order to make things happen, because we want to grow those industries in this country. So plans are there, and I just hope that in the case of RE, maybe the government can identify a suitable agency in order to be the one that will help promote this and really make it into industry that, that we as a nation will benefit from the thing that is in the earth, in our ground, and maybe become a geopolitical player at the same time.
Okay, from Tan Sri's answers, I would like forward the question to Dato. Multiple plans exist, but no central body that actually can drive it all at the same time. So without the coordination, we risk of moving too slowly, honestly. Right. So a central body could drive the agenda, like, for example, like Dato said, Petronas did for oil and gas previously. So do you think Malaysia needs a single agency for an aggregator of these efforts to actually really push the holistic execution of REE industry?
I think my answer is yes. I think learning from our industrialization era in 1980s, the formation of Petronas, as you mentioned, HICOM, Proton, Perdua. So it must be supported by seamless regulatory framework and a structured operational business model. Right? Because at the end of the day, what we need to achieve is that we need to create alliances so that we can achieve, develop local capability through technology transfer and achieve cost competitiveness and business sustainability. So similar to what we have done for automotive industry, as an example, the Look East policy, right? We need to have this, and we can replicate and use this experience. We need to propagate the new industry in Malaysia, because this is a good opportunity. So probably, as suggested by Tan Sri, a GLC or GLAC as a local champion. But we need to facilitate the whole of nation approach. Like what we did for Petronas, we have Acta 144 1974. But as you mentioned, it's easier because it's not on the land. But here for this industry, especially for upstream, that we need to work very closely with the state so that we can actually harness the potential. If not, it will just become potential, but we will not be able to realize the potential, because this potential can only benefit people if it's being realized by the nation. So we now, I think now it's time for us to discuss and actually execute and realize the potential to benefit the Malaysian society as a whole.
Yeah, I like the trajectory. I'm seeing the positive trajectory of this REE industry as a whole, actually. But there is still some public concern around it when it comes to rare earth elements, especially when it comes to the environment, all the mining challenges. So what can be done to actually shift that negative perception, also build public trust? Maybe you could start with Tan Sri and then Datuk.
Well, Nabilah, this is something that all my life I've been dealing with it. As I mentioned, when I started my career way back in the late 70s, when I starting up our nuclear research institute, Puspati in those days it's called, we have to deal with public acceptance of nuclear technology. Then, of course, this investment by Asian Rare Earth in Papan in Perak became an issue, and really, again, it's about public sentiments. Again, in this case, the fear of radiation. But in the case of that particular operation, the one in Gebeng that we have today, similar public concern. And sometimes it is politicized a bit in order to get the public worked up. But in reality, we have to go back to science. The fact that of the matter that the nuclear center, the nuclear reactor that is in Puspati, in Bangi today is still there operating. No problem. There has been no problem. There has been nothing to share about leakages of radiation and so forth, none. And similarly in Gebeng, yes, there is this, what do you call this, residue that is produced from the processing that has higher level of radioactivity, but there is natural radioactivity. The radioactivity is not produced there. It is there in the thing that was brought in, but only now it's concentrated. And well, the government is looking at how best to deal with it in terms of the long-term storage and safe disposal and so on and so forth, yes. The underlying issue when it comes to this, especially in this rare earth, there is this concern. First one is, I mentioned earlier, is about the mining itself. It has got to be done in an environmentally safe and so on and so forth, yes. But there could also be these naturally occurring radioactive elements in the ore that is produced that needs to be handled. And as soon as the word radiation comes in, there is this public perception about unwillingness to accept anything to do with radiation. Now the government is talking about the country going nuclear. To me, this education of the public such that we all know that it's about managing the cost benefit of this industry. The fact that officially it's been announced that we are going to harness nuclear as one of our future energy sources, as many countries are doing it now because of the challenges that we are facing. This issue of public acceptance will be key because unless the public is ready, governments may fall because finally people go to the ballot box and decide who to rule. If they feel that this government or the government of the day is doing something that they don't accept, people may not vote for it. So that is the balance. But as a nation, we will need a secured source of energy for the future going forward to fund our livelihood, industries, and so on and so forth. And what are the options available? This is an area too when it comes to public acceptance because of the experience of Linus, because of the experience of Papan and so on. So, although it's very natural, but still it's radiation, yeah. So people are scared. So one of those. There has to be also, just like what Tadi, perhaps agency to push for the development of this industry, but maybe also there has to be a concerted, conscientious effort at public education towards public acceptance of this industry, be it rare earth or nuclear technology.
Interesting. Maybe it's something to add before we wrap up, Dato'.
Yes, very much, because I'm from Kuantan, where the Linus factory is. The plant has been operating for the past 12 years. You know, I've never heard of any, sickness or any death, anything happens over there. So I believe time has actually proven that this industry can be managed. Of course, all industry come with all those side effects. Yeah, semua industry pun ada, we got that. But we need to understand this really, that technology frontier changes, evolution, revolution, and disruption. Right? There needs continuous education and communication with the public, as Tan Sri mentioned, so that people are aware that if not, you will be left behind in technology advances. So I think the world is moving towards utilization of these rare earths as a finished product, EV motor, sensors, and so on. And Malaysia has the opportunity, because we have large reserve of rare earth that can be translated into even huge economic potential for the country.
And the advancement is moving too fast right now, and we're trying to catch up, because aspirations is there, optimisms are there, but now is the work for your development to be done, and that actually needs the whole government approach, like both of you mentioned, and this actually to create the whole ecosystem from upstream to downstream, and we hope that it could actually benefit the whole value chain. So thank you so much. I would like to say thank you to Tan Sri Dr. Engineer Ahmad Tajuddin Ali, the Joint Chairman for MITE, and also thank you to Dato' Engineer Abdul Rashid Musa, and we can find the whole discussion on all of our social media platforms, and that include astroawani.com.
Dibawakan oleh penaja utama jelajah jiwa SME, Unify Business, rakan digital pilihan anda.
Daulat Tuanku.
Di dalam setiap berita yang dibawa, konteks amat penting. Kami sentiasa membawakan yang tergempar dan terkini. Pastikan Astro Awani menjadi pilihan anda, tidak kira di mana sahaja anda berada.
Dok Aman dah nak makbul. Abang nak keluar dari sini kan?
Kita cari bilik sewa. Ni rumah saya.